Arise, Queens. This is the All Queens Army, where women are provided with the tools you need to overcome your fears, face your flaws, and experience breakthroughs as you develop self-esteem so strong you emanate royalty. Now, for your host and commander of the All Queens Army, Breizy Time.
Welcome to the All Queens Army podcast. This is your girl, your host, Breizy Time. I am here today with another dope episode for the Queens. Yes, honey, super duper excited about another Motivational Monday in the books. It's a beautiful day. I hope you queens already having an amazing day. If you're not, I hope that my good, positive, strong energy jumps right off of this podcast and right onto you, honey, and give you tons of hugs and tons of love, okay? We have a really great episode today, a really good topic that is specific to the queens, honey, specific to us as women. I mean, all of the topics are specific to us as women, but this one is really speaking to women, something that I go through, something that I know you queens go through, something that the queens have reached out to me about and have asked for some suggestions on. So I figured, let's just talk about it on the podcast, okay? So before we jump into today's topic, we're going to get some quick announcements going and then we're going to jump right in, okay? So the website, allqueensarmy.com, has e-courses up there. There are 5 e-courses that are continuations of some of these episodes for you ladies who are working on overcoming something, learning something, evolving in a certain way, trying to manifest what you want in your life. There are specific e-courses that are free for you queens that are out on the website. So take some time to take some of those e-courses. I've received some feedback. The ladies seem to really like them. I am super pumped and super stoked about them. So go ahead, try them out. Also, the All Queens Army blog is up. It is a motivational blog. Every Thursday at 6 a.m., a new blog drops on the website. So drink your coffee, drink your tea, get a little bit of motivation to get your Thursday morning started. Last thing, allqueensarmy.com, you can subscribe to the All Queens Army podcast. So if you have not subscribed yet and you don't get notifications to your phone when a new podcast episode drops, make sure you do that. Click on the subscribe tab. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes. So choose whichever one of those platforms is your favorite and subscribe to the All Queens Army podcast. Okay. So it is time for us to get into today's topic. We're going to be talking today about the art of balance. Now, 2 weeks ago, we talked about another art, and that art was the art of mastering how to become unbothered, okay? So today, we're talking about another art. This is the art of balance, and we are learning how to balance being productive and still having time for yourself. That's what today's episode is all about, because that's one of the hardest things for women to figure out. It's so difficult for us to figure out how to juggle all of the things that are on our plate, all of our responsibilities, everybody's tugging at us, all of the shit that we need to get done on a daily basis, and then still have time to take care of ourselves, have time to get our nails done, get our hair done, get massages, do that self-care that we're all talking about nowadays, which is super duper important. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, okay? The reason that I wanted to talk about this is because one of the things that I've noticed in talking to you queens is when you aren't moving at 900 miles per hour, getting everything done, being a superwoman, being a super mom, being a boss babe, if you're not doing all of those things in like gear 10, going at 900 miles per hour, I've noticed with you queens that you start feeling like you're not productive. You start feeling like you're not doing enough. You start feeling like you're not reaching your goals. You start feeling like you're not a good mom. You're not a good friend. You're not a good daughter. You're not doing well at your job. You literally start feeling like you're not really doing that good in all of the things that you're doing because you're doing so much shit. So we need to learn how to find a happy medium, learn how to balance being productive and still getting things done, and also making sure that you're carving out time to take care of yourself. Now, we've talked about similar topics in previous episodes, but we didn't link it into the being productive part, because the being productive part is the part of us in which we're dealing with so many other things in our lives. We're dealing with spouses, we're dealing with kids, we're dealing with our parents, we're dealing with our job, we're dealing with our household. We have so many responsibilities. We're being pulled in so many different directions. And for some reason, society has created this expectation that we just have superpowers, okay? Now, let's be clear. We all know that we have superpowers, okay? We know that as women, we have superpowers. Like, we literally can get some some shit done, and we don't even know how we're getting done what we're getting done half the time. We don't even know how we're accomplishing things. We don't even remember how we got from point A to point B sometimes, because we literally tap into a supernatural power of badassery and we literally get some shit done, right? However, let's not let that become the expectation. That's just what we can do. It doesn't mean it's what we have to do all the time. So I want you queens to be very careful with allowing society's expectations of us to be so high that we set the bar so high and we set the standard so high for ourselves that we start to not feel like we're doing a good job when we're doing a damn good job. We expect ourselves to perform at levels that are just not human, like I said, at a supernatural place. And while we can do it, it shouldn't be our normal operating zone. It should just be that we can tap into that when we need to, but it shouldn't be the normal operation zone of how we do things every day, day in and day out. Because what'll happen, queens, if you do that, you will wind up getting burnt out. You will wind up getting tired, frustrated, and you will feel completely depleted, okay? So many women struggle with balancing being productive and getting things done, especially those of us who are working towards a goal and we have a lot of responsibility. So it can be a challenge to find a balance between being productive so that you don't beat yourself up and having feelings of accomplishment and still feeling like you have some downtime to relax and recuperate, okay? So here are some of the consequences of doing too much, taking on too much responsibility, putting too much on your plate, trying to be productive. And I'm going to mention some consequences that are on the other side of the spectrum, which is when you feel like you're doing too little and you're not being productive enough and you're feeling unmotivated because you're beating yourself up. So we're going to talk about consequences on both sides of the spectrum. So the first thing is that you don't want to overwhelm yourself to the point of immobility. If you put too much on your plate, if there is absolutely too much responsibility for one person to handle, and when I say too much responsibility, I mean when you've taken on so much responsibility that you don't even have time for yourself, you don't even have time to sit down and take a breather for an hour. And yeah, I said an hour, because you'd be surprised, queens, there's a lot of you out there who don't even get 5 minutes to yourself a day, especially when you have young kids or you have a budding business going. Honey, the time in the day goes by so fast and you're tending to everything and everyone else, and you look up and it's midnight and you've been literally moving all day long. So when I say an hour, I mean an hour. And to some of you that may seem like not a lot of time, and some of you that may seem like an impossible thing, because when the hell do you find an hour to yourself? And I want to let you know, you have to incorporate your own time to recoup and relax and breathe in a day, because if you don't, you will overwhelm yourself to the point where you become immobile. And what that means is you can work and push yourself every day for 5 days straight, 10 days straight, maybe even 15 days straight. And then you will have that day where you will crash and you can't do a damn thing. You can't get up. You don't want anybody to talk to you. You don't want anybody asking you anything. You are at your max level of productivity. So don't do that, because that's just like not getting enough rest and drinking coffee and trying to operate off of the coffee energy as opposed to operating off of the energy that you have from getting proper rest. Eventually you will crash. So here's another thing. You're not caring for your emotional well-being. When you're taking on too much responsibility, when you're trying to be super duper overly productive, you're not caring for yourself. You're not carving out that time to make sure that you have a moment to yourself. Another one is you can get very frustrated. Very frustrated. Your patience gets short. You get annoyed really quickly because you've got a lot to do and you don't have time for people wasting your time. Sometimes you can even take that out on your kids, on your spouse, on your parents, or people around you, even on your coworkers. I've had days where I was so annoyed, I literally was snapping at my coworkers. So that can even happen as well. Here's another thing. You're not truly getting anything done. You know, when you have too much to do, when you're trying to do too much, when you're trying to take on too much responsibility, actually you're not being productive at all, because nothing that you're doing, if you're operating in level 10 all the time and moving at 900 miles an hour all the time, if that's what you're doing, you're not really doing any of the things that you're doing good. You're just getting them done. But it doesn't mean that you're doing them well, because you don't have enough time to invest in doing it well. You're just focused on trying to get it done, and getting it done becomes good enough. So you want to make sure that, so that's just another consequence, is that you're getting it done, but you may not be getting it done efficiently. You may not be getting it done accurately. And when you're not doing it efficiently or accurately, sometimes you have to redo it, which is then wasting even more time. It's just not productive, queens. Another thing is that you can start to develop bitterness. I talk to a lot of bitter moms. Bitterness because they don't feel like their husband or their spouse is helping enough. They feel like they take on the majority of the responsibilities. Bitterness because you feel like you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders, the weight of your business, the weight of your job, the weight of your department, the weight of your children, and all of the responsibilities that go along with that, the weight of whatever it is that you're responsible for. And you become bitter sometimes at the thing that you're responsible for because it just feels like, oh my gosh, this is so annoying, but you keep taking it on. So you don't want to get bitter, okay? Here's another one. And this is like a deadly trap. This is like a cycle that you can get yourself into. Is never feeling like you've done enough. Oh my goodness. How many of you are guilty of that? I'm raising my hand because I'm guilty of that. Sometimes you just feel like you're not doing enough. Now, this is actually the other side of the spectrum, okay? This is on the side where you feel like you're doing too little, right? When you do actually take those moments for yourself, when you do take those moments to just sit down and watch one of your favorite shows, when you do take that moment to just do nothing, like be a couch potato and just sit and eat snacks and eat ice cream or do whatever it is that you want to do, sometimes you can suffer from feeling like you haven't done enough when you take those days or those moments to take care of yourself. It's like a guilt thing. You start to feel guilty like, oh my gosh, I know it's something that I should be doing. Or you think about one of the projects that you're working on or something you needed to do for one of the kids or something you needed to do for the job, and you feel this guilt like, oh man, while I'm sitting here doing nothing, I could have got that done. I could have did that. Be careful with that, queens. Be careful, be careful, be careful. Here's another one, and I think this is one of the biggest and scariest potential consequences in my opinion, is you can wind up feeling unhappy and unfulfilled in your life if you're trying to be overly productive. And this one also applies to the other side of the spectrum where you're feeling like you're not doing enough. You feel a little undermotivated and unproductive. You can feel unhappy and you can feel unfulfilled. You have to be careful with that, queens. That's one of those things where if you're feeling that, you really have to reevaluate your expectations of yourself. You have to evaluate why you're setting the bar so high. You have to evaluate why you're expecting so much from yourself. What are you trying to prove? Whose voice are you trying to snuff out? What's going on there? If you're experiencing that, that one requires a little bit more digging. Okay, so we're going to go into everybody's favorite part of the episode where we start to talk about how do you be productive and find time for yourself at the same time? How do you be productive and not feel overwhelmed with all of the things that you have to do? How do you find time for yourself and not feel guilty about the fact that you're actually taking time and not being productive in that moment, okay? Isn't it weird? It's like, as women, we're such interesting creatures. We're one and the same, right? We need to be super duper productive in order to feel valuable, in order to feel like we're contributing, in order to feel like we're good moms and good friends and good sisters and all of that good stuff, right? We need to feel productive. We need to be involved. We need to do stuff. But at the same time, we also need to take time for ourselves, and we know this, but then we feel guilty when we're taking time for ourselves because we're not being productive. And then when we're being productive, we beat ourselves up and say, you know what? I need to do more for me. It's like, come on, queens, we got to work on this. So this part of today's episode, I'm going to give you some tips on how to balance that, because it's an art, okay? Balancing those two things, being productive and not getting overwhelmed, and balancing that with having time for yourself and not feeling guilty. Okay, so that's what this is all about. So here's a couple tips. The first thing that you can do is learn to value yourself, your emotional well-being, and your need to recuperate. Just value that. Take a moment and just rest in that. Live in that for just a moment. It is very important for you to value yourself. You have to understand that you are not a machine. You are a woman. You are a human being. You are a person. You need to be able to get proper rest. You need energy. You need to be pampered. You need to be taken care of. You need to take care of yourself too. The same amount of energy that you're giving other people, you're giving your children, your job, all of the people around you who love you, who depend on you, who you're pouring into their cup. You have to make sure that you carve out time to pour into your cup. As a matter of fact, you're supposed to fill up your cup, and anything that's extra is what's supposed to go to everybody else. You're not supposed to be pouring from your cup to give to other people. You're supposed to give other people the overflow, because you can't operate a family. You can't nurture your children. You can't be the best at everything if you're operating from an empty or half empty cup. You have to make sure your cup is full. So the first thing that you want to do is just take a moment to acknowledge that. That's not even something you have to do anything. Just take a moment and live in this conversation right here and acknowledge that you have to value yourself first. You have to take care of your emotional well-being first. You have to recuperate. You have to get rest. You have to sleep. And sleep isn't the only kind of rest that I'm talking about. Rest means that sometimes you just have to take a step back from all of the responsibilities you have and have moments and periods of time where you don't do that. You do whatever it is that you enjoy, whether that's listening to music, pour a glass of wine, put your feet up, watch one of your favorite shows, hang out with your friends, play a game, read a book, book, whatever it is that you enjoy that you can do to have some time to yourself, do that. If you need to take a long weekend, do that. All right, so that's the first thing, just the acknowledgement, living in the moment and acknowledging and accepting the fact that you deserve and you need time to yourself to recuperate and rest. So here's the second tip. Take a step back and make a list of the responsibilities and the tasks that you have to complete. So just make a list. Make a task list. It's like a life list. Here are the things that I do on a regular basis every day, and just make a list of it. The way my list looks is I go to work, I do my job, I check on my son, I check on his school, I check on his grades, I check the balance on his college account and try to give money when we need to. I check all of the bank accounts and make sure all the money is where it's supposed to be. I pay the bills. I make the budget. I balance out everything. I make the supermarket list. I send reminders to my husband and my son about things that need to be done because they can't remember shit. I call and I check up on my mom. I run errands for my mom. I do things for my mom. I make sure that the dog goes to the vet. I take care of the dog. I coordinate the house being cleaned. Y'all get the point? Okay. So that's what I mean. Just make a list. And I guarantee you, when you make that list, it's going to overwhelm you. You're going to be so overwhelmed with all of the things that you do every day. Oh, and make sure, let's not forget that you add on your list, because it's probably not on that list today. It's probably not something that you're consciously paying attention to today. But if you have not added something like this to your list of weekly or daily things to do, I want you to add it now. Add in an hour a day for yourself to do something for you. I don't want to hear any shit talking about why you can't, why you don't have the time. You better find the time. If it means that you need to get up an hour earlier in the morning, do that. But make sure that you're carving out time for you. You have to build it into your schedule. You have to build it into your life. If you don't take the time to build it into your life, you'll never have it and you'll burn out. And you're no good to your family or anyone else if you get to that point. If you let yourself get there, you're no good to anybody, not even yourself. So make sure that you add that on your list. If it's not something you're practicing today, add it to your list, okay? Now, once you have that list created, here's the next thing that you can do. Get in the habit of creating a daily to-do list. If you need a notebook, there are journals out on the All Queens Army website. You can go there and purchase one. Make a little book that is your to-do list book. I have a to-do list book. I write a to-do list every single day. I talk about this all the time. My best friend is the one who got me into the habit of writing a to-do list. When you have your overall life tasks, you can fill out your to-do list based on your life tasks. So you can start to plot the things that are on your life task list, the list, that big list that I just talked about. You can take that and start to plot things down on different days as you plan out your days, as you plan out your weeks, as you plan out your months. Getting in the habit of writing a daily to-do list is the biggest life hack I have ever experienced ever. I'm telling you, my whole life changed. I got so much more productive. I got so much more consistent when I started writing that to-do list. I've been doing it now for about 2.5 years, coming up on 3 years, where I've been writing a to-do list every single day. Because one, it allows you to plan out your day. It sets up the expectations of what tomorrow is going to look like. It also ensures that you're holding yourself accountable for the things that need to be done. It also ensures that you're not trying to do too much. Because when you start to put this stuff on paper, just like the life task list that I told you to write, you're going to be shocked at how much shit you have on that list. And if you are shocked and if you feel overwhelmed, feel free to cross some of that stuff out. Feel free to delegate those things to other people. You do not have to do all of those things. You can delegate some of those things to other people, okay? So you heard me say that one of the things on my task list is to coordinate the house being cleaned. I don't clean my house. My husband does his cleaning. My son does his cleaning, but I do coordinate it. I do tell them what needs to be done. I do send them reminders. I do tell my son on the day that he needs to do something. I do tell my husband, hey, on your day off, this is what needs to be done. I coordinate those things. I don't do them because I do enough already. And that was one of the things that was easy for me to delegate. Okay, so queens, make sure you're delegating some of those things on your list. You are not the only person in your household or in your life that can do some of the things that are on your list. And if you're single, I'm not talking about just household stuff. I'm talking about even stuff at work. I'm talking about some of the responsibilities that you've taken on for people in your family, some of the responsibilities you've taken on for people. If you're overwhelmed and it's too much on there, you need to delegate it, get rid of it, or tell people for your mental health and your mental well-being, you can no longer do that for them. The whole thing about being overwhelmed and why so many of us as women get overwhelmed is because we take on too much. We're taking on too much. Again, we think we're super women, and we are, but we don't have to put a cape on every single day. Superwoman was not Superwoman every day. She did not put on that damn cape and do all those goddamn tricks every day. It's not meant for you to do every day. It's for you to turn on when you need to turn it on and you turn it off. So make sure that you're not putting too much on your list. If you have more on that life task list than what you can schedule in a week, it's too much. It's too much. And make sure that you are adding on your daily to-do list, 1 hour should be your you time. If you can't fit in that hour of you time and all of the other things that you need to get done, it's too much. Okay. So one of the reasons why you're overwhelmed and why you feel unproductive is because you're trying to tackle too many things. You're only one person, queen. You only have 24 hours a day and you need to sleep for at least 6 or 7 of those hours. So make sure that you're not overdoing it. Make sure you're not taking on too much responsibility and overwhelming yourself with all of this stuff. All right. So get in the habit of creating a daily to-do list. Write it out. I usually try to do my to-do list on Sunday. I take my life task list, all of the different things that need to be done, and I start plopping them down on my to-do list based on different things that are going on in the week. Looking at my calendar for work, seeing where I need to be for work and what I have going on. Am I traveling? Am I going to be home? What am I doing? So that I can start plopping those things on my to-do list. And again, if I can't fit them all on there, that's an indication that I've taken on too much. So don't be afraid to delegate. Don't be afraid to give some people some stuff and ask them to do it. Don't be afraid to even tell some people, you know what? No, I can't do this anymore. It's too much. I'm overwhelmed. Now, here's the next thing. When you start to create your daily to-do list, try to do your tasks in smaller doses. Here's an example. When I very first started All Queens Army, I used to try to record the episode a week before, get it edited, upload it to the website, and all of that all in one foul swoop. And what that did was it made it so that my episodes were so inconsistent. They're supposed to come out every Monday and they weren't. I had no schedule. I was all over the place. Everything was unorganized. And it was just like, look, I was doing everything flying by the seat of my pants. Now that I'm in season 3, we're in year 2 of the All Queens Army being in existence, I've learned a thing or two. And what I've learned is to do things in small doses. So now, instead of trying to do all of this stuff all at one time, now I just do one task at a time. Now I just focus on just record all the episodes. Just record one episode a day, every day until I'm finished the entire season. So now I just do it that way. And then once I've recorded all 20 episodes, it may take me 20 days, sometimes 30 days, because there's some days that I'll miss in between. But it may take me a month of recording an episode a day and skipping some days in between. And then after that's done, now I just focus on the next thing. Now focus on editing all the episodes and spread that out over the course of a couple weeks. The bottom line is after 3 or 4 months, I'll have done everything that I needed to have done, as opposed to trying to jam it all in, because then you overwhelm yourself with all of the work that needs to be done. Just do one thing at a time. Tackle one thing at a time. Break it up into small doses, because when you make it too big, the bigger you make it, the more you immobilize yourself, because you make it so big that you get overwhelmed and you don't know where to start. So set small goals, small little goals in small doses. So when I think about recording my episodes for the podcast, while it is a huge feat because I produce this whole show myself, I don't have anybody else that helps me do this. I create all of my own content for the All Queens Army page. There's no one else who's doing this for me. It's a lot to do. But the only way that I'm able to manage getting it done is to do it in small doses and plan way ahead of time. The problem is that we try to fit everything into a very small window of time, and we're trying to do too much in that short window because we lack the patience of waiting for things to be done. We want everything done right now. You know, we live in a microwave society. We want to pop everything in for a minute and come out and have a whole meal. Well, it doesn't work like that. Most things don't work like that. They take time, and you have to learn how to be okay with that time. So if you know that things take time, make sure you give it enough time before you get started. If you know you have a paper due and it's 100 and it's a 50-page paper, don't wait until the week before and say, oh, every day this whole week I'm going to write the paper. That's way too overwhelming. Start 2 months ahead. Write 1 page a day, because the time is going to pass regardless. It's all in the execution of it. If you execute and you plan properly, then you prevent yourself from being overwhelmed. Every day you're doing a little bit. It's almost like building a house. If you put 1 brick on a day, eventually you'll have a house. But most people say, you know what? I want a house next week. I'm going to put 2,000 bricks down a day for 5 days. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. If you do it like that, you have way more errors. You have a lack of accuracy. You have poor quality. You're frustrated. You're overwhelmed. You're annoyed. All of these things happen because you're not spacing it out long enough, because you're not giving it enough time. And that's the test of patience. That's how you learn patience. You have to understand that things take time. So instead of me looking at, I want to produce a whole season of my podcast and I want to do it in a month. Well, yeah, that's ideal, but it takes longer than that. It takes longer than that to do it right. so that I'm not overwhelmed, because once I get overwhelmed, then I'm not doing what I need to do. Now I'm not consistent. So just maybe change the way you're doing things and the way you're planning things out, and schedule your tasks in small doses so that you don't get overwhelmed. Okay, just set little goals for yourself. Again, be patient. Look, I didn't went into the other little tips I was going to give you. It's about patience. It's about being consistent. Don't beat yourself up, and be gentle with yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Take your time. Understand that taking time out for yourself is a necessary requirement. If you don't, you're going to be short-tempered. You're going to be frustrated. You're not taking care of yourself. And again, if you're not taking care of you, you're number one. You're the person that everyone's depending on. You're the person that your family's depending on. You're depending on yourself. You have to take care of yourself. And taking care of yourself also means maybe eating better. Taking care of yourself could also mean exercising. That's something that I've been working on, is the eating better and the exercising, because I'm realizing that a part of self-care, a part of taking care of myself, a part of ensuring that my emotional well-being is intact is also not just how I treat myself and my emotions, but what I'm putting into my body and how I'm treating my body. I've got to love my body and love myself. If I want this bad boy to keep on ticking and keep on producing and keep making shit happen and keep being a good mom and keep being a good wife and keep being a dependable daughter and keep being a good friend, I have to make sure that this body can keep ticking, because it's 40 years old now and it needs to keep ticking. Because if this body doesn't keep ticking, if emotionally I'm not stable enough to continue to support all of the people, then all of the shit that I'm doing every day, running myself ragged, doesn't mean anything, because I won't be here tomorrow to do it. I'm either going to drive myself crazy or I'm going to keel over and die. You have to take care of yourself. Yes, we have to be productive. We have shit to do. Yes, we are super women, but you don't wake up every day and put the cape on. You wake up every day and you do what you need to do, and then you take the time to yourself and you kick your feet up and say, I did that shit today. I did 10 things today. I was productive. I got it done. You don't need to do 20, 30, 40 things a day. You don't need to overwhelm yourself. And to some of my queens who are listening, this is another thing that I've seen, that I've observed with some of the queens that I talk to. Some of you have tied your self-worth and your self-esteem into people feeling like they can depend on you and lean on you because you get shit done. Baby, don't tie your self-esteem and your self-worth into tasks and projects and what you can get done and being a superwoman. You don't need to be one. You are one already. You do not have to walk out there and show everybody the cape and that you can fly every day. It's not a requirement. It will wear you out. So queens, make sure that the very first thing that you do is that you fill your own cup, that you take care of yourself, that you give yourself the proper care, you give yourself the proper rest, you give yourself the proper relaxation. Again, whether that be long weekends, whether that be hanging with your girls, whether it just be a quiet minute to yourself in the corner drinking some coffee and reading the All Queens Army blog. It doesn't matter. Take the time out for yourself. Try to get in the habit of writing down a to-do list every single day. Like I said, there's some journals on the website that you can use for creating a to-do list. I use it every day, have been almost 3 years now. Life is super duper productive. Sometimes I do fall back into those ruts of trying to do too much, overwhelming myself. And I just have to remind myself that I need to do my tasks in small doses. So that's that. So that's what you can do, queens. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you're not overwhelming yourself. Learn the art of balance. The balance is being able to take the time out and feeling comfortable enough and justify that you need time for yourself, and don't beat yourself up about it. Make sure it's on your to-do list. It's something that you need to do every day, and you need to commit to it. Just like you commit to being a superwoman for everybody else, queens, make sure you commit to being a superwoman for you, okay? Okay, so with that being said, queens, that's the end of today's episode. I hope that was super duper helpful for you. I hope I motivated the shit out of you, because that's always the plan. If you have any questions, you need to reach out to me for any reason. You need my help. You just want to talk to me. You want to say something to me. Feel free to email me at breezy@allqueensarmy.com. That is BREIZY@allqueensarmy.com. I love you so much, queens. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the All Queens Army podcast. If you want to connect with Breizy Time and the All Queens Army, be sure to follow them on IG and Facebook at All Queens Army. Or head over and check out the All Queens Army YouTube channel. Until next time.